Hi, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the HRC podcast. I'm your host, Mahira Khan, accompanied by my childhood friend and my co host, Mr. Harish Chaudhary.
Love to be here.
Today, we'll be covering a topic that's, I think, on everyone's mind, the power of saying no. It might be stress inducing for some, it might be easy for some, but we want to see that whether when we say no to something, it should not be stressful. It could make your life a little bit easier, maybe. So we want to cover the aspect of saying no, whether it falls in a positive category, a negative category for some.
Yeah.
Harish will elaborate for us and cover all the personas as we always do. So,
I think the problem is more to do with not understanding that you have to say no, first of all. So I think, before we cross that barrier, a lot of the listeners, a lot of people just don't know are not aware of this concept, primarily because of cultural upbringing, the way we are,
yeah,
set as
tuned.
attuned to the society
Right.
and certain commitment levels. So I think the first point here is that a lot of people just don't know or aware of this topic of saying no. What it leads to is overcommitting. What it leads to is burnout that we discussed in the last episode. So we'll leave that link below. And I think that is the biggest problem of people not being happy in their lives. It also leads to people not being successful in their businesses and so many other problems that we'll discuss today.
Right. So we'll jump right into it. And I was going through stuff online,
Yeah.
and there were some studies that said that, there are almost 61% of people they say that struggle with setting boundaries, and 43% say they've experienced burnout because of overcommitting.
Yeah.
We're not saying say no to everything, but you can say no to certain things which
Yeah.
are going to an extreme, or you're overcommitting and not
Yeah.
being able to achieve what you need to do. So, how would you like to elaborate on that, Harish?
In the last episode again, right, we discussed reasons of burnout, and one reason of burnout in people's life was the ability of just taking over too much of work and too much of commitment and not saying no to things. As in, today's episode is really going super deep in it, right? And that's what we are really here to do. I'm not even surprised with the kind of numbers you're seeing on the internet. Again, it's also at what point in time this data was taken. So, you will see there's a huge difference between data being taken pre-COVID
And
versus
post-COVID,
post-COVID, because
right.
I think the definition of burnout for people like changed due to COVID, right? Like a lot of people were like super okay to do so many things before COVID. And then, I think that thing has changed our life. But, at the end of the day, a burnout is a burnout. Unsuccessful careers, unsuccessful businesses, nothing changes there, right? And I think one of the factors there is your ability to say no. And if you're not doing that and you're just saying yes to everything and you think that's going to lead to a successful career
Yeah.
and a successful business and successful relationships and happy life, I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, because people actually they have a negative connotation regarding saying no. We want to discuss that even when you say no, you can still achieve the things. Be
Yeah.
happy in your relationships.
Yeah.
Be happy with your decisions, and achieve whatever needs to be achieved in that particular time. But don't overcommit to it, and then get exhausted about it. That okay, I've said no, I've said yes to everybody, and now I can't achieve that
Yeah.
in my day. So something like
See,
that.
listen, I think the root cause, and again, depends upon, who's listening. So, our personas are student. We cover homemakers, we cover CEOs and entrepreneurs. We also cover people who are working. In my opinion, just think through these three, reasons. The number one reason is the fear of disappointment,
Right.
right? As in, that, in my opinion, is depending upon who you are, you're just saying yes to everyone around you because you're just worried about hurting people and, just thinking from their point of view and not necessarily from your point
So,
of
do you
view.
want to start this like persona wise so that it's easily broken
Yeah.
down for the listeners and they
Yeah.
understand with examples, for instance?
So what I'll do is let me just first cover the three reasons. So the fear of disappointing. The second is actually something that's coming from within. Okay. It's the need for affirmation. Right. So a lot of people actually say yes to everything because they just like that affirmation. They like that.
Positive feel that, oh,
I
yes.
don't know. It's it gives you that positive feel then and there. So it's like instant gratification in so many ways, but it's coming from a place which in the long run is not going to be helpful, right? It's in a way self
Exhausting.
prophecy,
Yeah.
fulfilling your self prophecy, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's negative. And then the third aspect is because you said no, maybe before, and now all of a sudden you're feeling guilty, and therefore now the feeling of guilt just keeps. So like one no leads to like 10 yeses.
Right.
So like these are the three reasons, you know what I mean? And
Yes.
like that, in my opinion, as in there could be 100, by the way.
Yes.
And again, call out to all the listeners, as in this is not a professional, like we are not professionals. We are not like,
Yes, it's a discussion on the
yeah, as in
topic.
we are really sharing
Yeah, our viewpoint on the thing.
yeah, and more our life lessons and life experiences, right? Like
Right.
this is why maybe these are the top three reasons for me, like, you know, could
Yes.
be top three for someone else. As
Right.
in we want to hear what the users have to say,
Yes.
like, you know, just comment, and you know, we want to know that.
Yeah. True.
You know, if you really go to the personas, and you know, if you want to start with the students, what does it mean, right? Like why are they not saying what?
Actually, to what are they not saying no? Like, for instance, in a student's life, when they go, they're more of school and college and friends, and probably their household with parents, with other guardians and adults in in your life. Where should they draw the line? Where does it become disrespectful where they're drawing a line? Because that is also one thing that you might think that he should say no or she should say no, but then it's sounding very disrespectful. So how can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think for the students, and you know, this is across all ages, right? As in the whole idea of a student in general is to be obedient. Because, you know, to a large extent, the premise is true that if they are disciplined and they're listening to their coaches and teachers and their parents, there's a high possibility they're going to be successful. That leads to the culture or the behavior that has been imbibed upon them, you know, to say yes. So I think, you know, when you look at the fear, the first point of fear of disappointing, the fear of disappointing in a student is really coming from the fact that, you know, from day zero all the way to wherever they are, they've been told not to say no, like just say yes, you know, like, hey, go do this assignment.
Yes, you
So
have
like,
to.
yeah, you have to just do the assignment, right? Maybe we'll talk about situations that is more relatable, right? Like a lot of students are told like, I'm going to assign you a buddy, and the buddy is like a top performing student in the class, somebody who's good with a subject that you're not good at. So now the buddy is telling you, let's do this, right? Like, hey, we'll stay back after class and maybe let's do homework together, and you know, that can have good and bad implications, right? So we'll discuss that in more examples. And then, you know, the whole example of like, I feel guilty, I want that affirmation, right? So that behavior leads to like, even if you're like a student who's doing PhD, now all of a sudden you're doing PhD, but you have a coach who's already a PhD.
Yes.
Somebody who is in a university, or you know, who's signing patents, for example, right? Now, if that person tells you to do something, you're like, oh my God, you know, if I don't do it, I'm going to feel guilty because I'm not going to be good at my PhD and things like that, right? So I feel like that's really where, like, that's an example of, you know, when you just keep saying yes to everything, is going to lead
So
to burnout.
basically, yeah, you cannot say for students, for example, that we're covering right now, you cannot say no to the basics. Like, for example, there are 8 periods in your of class, you have to attend those, you have to attend those, for instance, or you have a homework to finish, you have a homework to finish. But the additional things that are piling onto them, probably something can be cut out from
Yeah,
there.
I think the best litmus test, honestly, like, as in, you know, we don't want this podcast to not tell people what should they do and
Exactly,
not,
yeah,
right?
that's true.
I would say the biggest element of the conversation really is you are going to just feel a sense of burnout. You're not going to be happy doing what you're doing. There is going to be the sense of unfulfillingness, right? So the more you say yes, if you go back in your room and you're like, you did everything you said yes to, and you're still feeling a sense of emptiness, like the glass is just not full, filling up, right?
Yeah.
You kept saying yes to it, right? Who differentiates what's basic, for example, right? Like you're saying it's basic. I don't know what's basic. So I may just think everything is basic. I have to say yes to everything. Like, just do this assignment, read this book, be a buddy to someone, and you know, things like that. So you think you're saying yes to all the basics, but then you're getting this sense of burnout. And then in the previous episode, you know, we'll just touch base on this. What's the definition of burnout? The definition of burnout is all of a sudden you're not happy doing it. You don't feel fulfilled. You don't want to do it anymore.
You're exhausted with it, yeah.
Yeah, you know, like you just don't want to do it. So like you're exhausted, you're frustrated. I feel like that's really where, like, you need to understand, am I, like, that's your point. So if you like take this now and like go to the next persona and say, what does it mean to a homemaker?
Yes.
Like, what are they saying yes to?
Trying to accommodate everyone. In my 24 hours, I'm trying to accommodate everybody. which I'm trying to now set a boundary with and trying to be say no respectfully, like the way we're discussing it right now, that it's not about a person feeling offended that I'm saying no to doing an xyz job for them or going out of my way for them, but I have other 110 things to cover in that 24 hours which I'm also doing as it is.
Yeah.
So I'm also getting burnt out in a way that was
Yeah, so
happening.
now, like, if you now take this example of when you started with the students, right? Because, honestly, with the students, the problem is everything is basics. So, like, if you take now that same connotation, the same theme, and apply it to a homemaker, then everything is basic. Like, you got to cook, you got to do utensils, you got to, like, wash.
Expectation is such that you have to do everything.
So, like, that's basics, no? So, like,
Yeah.
now all of a sudden you're burning up because that's your job and not somebody else's job. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So, like, that's really my problem of, like, who decides what's the basic. And in my opinion, it's you who decides that, right? So we will discuss that in the next segment. But in my opinion, like, I think with the students, the line is a little blurry, right? Because they really don't know. They've not seen the world. And therefore, in so many ways, they're relying on the teachers and the coaches and the parents to do that. Unfortunately, everybody's going to tell them this is mandatory, this is required. I think as you start growing up and you are now working somewhere and you're a homemaker and I think you need to decide what's the basic, and we'll talk about the tools. But like I said, the minute you decide there's a burnout, that's your point, saying you're just saying yes to everything.
Like we keep discussing, this is not a psychology lecture, or this is not something, we're just talking about a topic and we want people to be enlightened about it. So in the case of students, like you're saying, they're dependent on somebody in a way, like guardians, parents, teachers, etc. So you think now in a responsible manner, the adult can also see that the child is being burdened with something and say no on their behalf, maybe?
That's really venturing out into an absolute jungle, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
like the jungle can take care of you, but the jungle can also destroy you, right? Like, how many people can, like, honestly, if you really go to a real jungle, someone like me, like, we may not even survive the first mile in the jungle.
Yes, true.
I think, like, the minute you let people take decisions on your behalf,
Yeah.
you're entering the jungle. So you really need to know how to navigate
No, but the
that.
students, poor things, are dependent on that. Na? They are not like adults. So for
Yeah.
adults, like you can say then a homemaker or a CEO or a
Yeah.
entrepreneur, they can take a decision for themselves. But these guys, they are
Yeah.
already dependent on
I
somebody
still
else.
I think the way the students really need to manage this situation is, like, have faith in the system,
Right.
right? Like, whether it's your teacher, coaches,
Parents.
and your friends, like,
Yes.
and then at the same time also recognize the burnout,
Right.
speak about it, like,
Speak
go,
about, yeah, bring
like,
it up.
go, like, yeah, exactly, right? Like, bring it up, and then I think that's really where, and then when you bring it up, like, bring up this topic of saying, am I saying yes to a lot? And then get the guidance from there on. Because listen, I think I've had, like, some of the best teachers in my life. I've had the best principals. I've had like the best coaches. I've had the best friends. Like, when I was growing up, I always looked up to my colleagues and my friends who were doing well. I also looked up to, my colleagues who were not doing well in studies, but they were doing well in sports, right? Like, there was always something to learn from everyone. I'm just saying, like, use this conversation in your conversation and say, like, why am I not enjoying studies? Am I saying yes to everything? And that's what's causing it. So that, like, just asking this question could help the dialogue, in my opinion. And I would say, like, if you look at entrepreneurs and if you look at homemakers, if you look at CEOs and the leaders, I think the conversation is much easier.
Yes.
So,
That's
like,
what I mean.
yeah. So now let's ask the same question, saying, who is answering this question on behalf of a housewife? Like, who is supposed to tell her that you're supposed to say no? It's her. You're a grown-up adult, right? Like, so now when you look at the lens, like, you, at least today, through this dialogue and listening to this conversation, because when I heard about this conversation, and by the way, like, the person who actually said, I'm saying yes to everything, was my boss. Yeah, which is surprising, isn't it? So I thought, like, I honestly took that with a sense of, like, with a big pinch of salt. And I said, this is wrong. I think this has been done because there's office politics. This has been done because I'm outperforming him.
Yes.
By the way, all of the topics that we've said has to be done throughout your life. even if it becomes a habit, then you need to improve the habit.
Yes, yes.
So, have I championed it today? Absolutely not, right? Like, I'm still learning and I'm still like discussing this, and I'm, hopefully tomorrow I'll be better at doing what I'm doing because we discussed this today. So, when I heard this topic for the first time, at least now you have that lens. If you have the lens, it's much better than not having the lens. It's like today you know this, you're much better than not knowing it. Whether you do anything about it or not. Like, I'm not even saying like tomorrow morning you get up, like all the listeners are going to get up and start
Saying
saying
no to
no to stuff.
everybody left, right, center. No, we don't mean that.
My view is like at least you have that lens, and that's super important because that lens, not having the lens is what leads to burnout. What not having that lens is what gives you the sense of guilt. Not having the lens is saying yes to everything because you're trying to fulfill self respect in a way that is, in my opinion, not practical. Is not going to help you at all.
So, touching the topic of homemakers, yesterday I was online browsing and I came across somebody's reel. You just browse, empty browse, and then you come across somebody, and it's related to this only. The lady was talking about going to the gym or going to work out like 1 hour a day. Okay, she wants to remove that 1 hour because she's a homemaker. So, she has all her daily routines of children, family, this, that, or whatever. So she was telling everyone, like in the public, to remove that 1 hour and go to the gym. And what is the mom guilt on that? What if I go for that 1 hour and my husband needs this, or my child needs to eat this, or my mother-in-law needs this, or XYZ, whoever, so on and so forth. So she said, you know something? Nothing will happen. Even if we drop dead tomorrow, they will still eat food, they will still do their work, they will still do whatever. So you have to actually think that saying no, it's coming to that,
Yeah.
say no to that thing for that 1 hour and give yourself, because your health tomorrow will again affect the child, affect your husband, affect your mother-in-law, affect everyone. You're
Yeah.
alive and thriving, everyone's alive and thriving with you then. So I think, yeah.
It's a very good example. I personally feel how many people or women, especially, even go to the gym and have this thought.
Yes.
I think a lot of people don't even go because they're actually having
Yes.
these thoughts
You're right.
at home,
Yes.
saying,
Now if I
"Oh
leave,
my, exactly. Now if I leave, this is going to happen.
Yes.
If I leave, who's going to do
Yeah.
the dishes? If I
Yes.
leave, who's going to cook the next meal?
Yes.
If I leave,
No, if I leave
there's
and
an
my
ailing
child will
person."
walk in or my husband will walk in, they need this. So I'm
Yeah.
not there at that 1 hour.
I feel like everybody has responsibilities. And you need to understand one thing. Not everybody has to live in the same roof.
Yes.
To be burdened with those responsibilities. Like,
100%.
your parent could be like 2 blocks away, but you still have that burden, right? Saying,
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what,
yeah.
I can't go to the gym because, they call,
At a
they,
certain
they,
particular time.
yeah, right? So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you're always ready. You're always like,
Yes,
worried about,
Yeah.
what if that call comes, I need to go.
Yes.
So in my opinion, like a lot of people actually don't even they don't follow certain routine. They just get locked into their house, especially the
Yes.
homemakers, just freaking locked into their house.
Because everyone else who's following a schedule is using that part of the day with that person.
Yeah.
You get it?
I've
Like, that's
actually
not
I've
confusing.
actually seen my mom, and you've seen my mom.
Yes.
Like, I think my mom was one of those people who did not understand this topic. I just wish, she knew about this topic. I just feel she was just absolutely unaware of this topic, saying, I can say no. I don't have to keep saying yes to everything, including yourself. Because, like I said, you are going to just say yes to the schedule you put for yourself.
Right.
If you're not aware of this topic.
Right.
And I think she did that for the longest period of time.
But Harish, I think if I go way back, this is now, the awareness has been coming from the past 10, 15 years, I would say, about these discussions have been coming out in our childhood when our parents were younger and whatever. I don't think the awareness was there. So I don't blame her entirely for it.
I still feel like, your mom did a better job of it. Like, at least she had a life outside
She would,
home.
she would put her foot down
Yeah,
in certain
now-
things, what she wanted to do.
Yeah.
Because she would sacrifice for everyone and do everything, like for
Yeah.
her family, for my father's side of the family, for herself, or whatever. But then sometimes she used to, for me, especially for me being her only child, like I would say she started her career when I was in college. So when I was graduating, she was doing a course and finishing an interior design thing with kids of my age. So kudos to that. But at least she gave herself that time, even if it was that late in life, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's had a career from the past 20 years or more.
She's going to have a different flavor to it. I feel, at least for us, like, I've seen my mom just been stuck at home. So many of us have. At least for us, she was a role model, saying she always removed time for doing certain things outside of her house, right? But even if it meant like going and giving back to some other member of the family, I've seen her do that.
Yeah.
But the point really, what I'm trying to make is a lot of people are just locked in, right? Like they're not like the real example you were giving is of a person who's at least in the gym and feeling guilty about it.
Yes.
But a lot of people are not even doing that, right? Like,
Yes.
so I think that's the first step
Yes.
is, recognizing we got to do that. And therefore I'm saying, just listen to the topic today. You don't have to like change your world tomorrow morning. But because we are going to talk about tools, right? As that's what we're going to do in the next section.
Right.
But I think there's so much of fulfillment when you say that. Okay. So, like, if you look at a student and we talk about if you stop saying yes to everything, I feel there's so much to win in the process. Obviously, they need guidance.
Right.
So, they need to have this conversation with the right people, and there's so many right people around them, by the way, right? If they come up with one or two things that they just start saying no to, I just feel they're going to be more productive.
And how about the businessmen and the entrepreneurs, their persona? How do you think they should be tackling this?
I just feel like the businessmen are like just locked in their own world, right? Like, I think being a businessman, businesswoman, being an entrepreneur is a burden, is something not everybody in the world is doing. So what you're really trying to do in there, as in, the fear of failure and what are people going to say. So what you're really saying, you're saying yes to everything because you want to be successful. You want the business to be successful. And what it leads to is a lot of people just wasting your time, right? So I'll give an example for an entrepreneur. And this is something very recently I was talking to one of my mentors who also happens to be my boss, right? And he said, are you sure like you want to close every deal? Because like if you say yes to every deal, like if there is this inherent call in your mind that you want to close every deal, I think you're going to like say yes to deals which are either taking way too longer to close. It's exhausting your resources. And your resources, Harish, is the resources of the firm. So now you're exhausting the firm's resources. And it's not going to be a profitable venture, that deal, right? So I'll give you an example, like absolutely out of my business. Say you are an entrepreneur selling something, but honestly, 99% of you're selling something, right? And you bump into this client or a prospect who is asking you questions about everything that you don't offer, everything that you don't sell,
Okay.
but it's borderline. You see what I'm saying? It's like you sell clothes for adults, but now all of a sudden it's like, by the way, do you do clothes for teenagers? Because if you do that, I'll give you a very big order. Now all of a sudden you're tempted. But that is exactly where you should have said no. If you are familiar with this concept of saying no, you have that lens, you're like, this is going to cost me extra money. This is going to make me go out of the way.
This is not my expertise also. You
This
could say
guy
that.
already knows
Hmm.
this is what I sell.
Hmm.
He's still asking me this question. Is he like treasure hunting? Yeah. So I have this whole concept that I built after this conversation I had with my mentor saying, oh yeah, you know what? There are clients and prospects who are treasure hunting. What percentage of everybody you're prospecting should be the treasure hunters?
Right.
Because, honestly, it could be a big order.
Hmm.
70% of your prospects are just treasure hunting and you're catering and you opened yourself with all those conversations. You're not going to have any deal and they're going to be all loss-making deals. So immediately you just have to say no and say, hey, sir, I do see you can give a big order. But as of today, like my area is, clothing in a particular segment. And maybe I can come back to you, circle back with you when I'm ready and, things like that. Now you can obviously, call a friend who does that thing. And if she can say yes to that deal and you can make a small cut of it as an introduction fee, why not, right? So you kept the relationship, but you did not have to fulfill the order, by the way. It's not your space, right? So I think the entrepreneurs are living in a different world of their own. And unfortunately, they don't understand that they're living in a bubble that they've created for themselves. And most of the time, because they're burdened to make everything successful and they're worried about failure, that fear is there. They're just saying yes to everything, and the burnout at those levels is insane.
Okay. I would like to know that what are the practical strategies you think are there for saying no?
The practical challenges of saying no is, in a way, rooted to, the three problems, right? But honestly, like let's be practical and let's pick a persona that we did not touch in the last segment, but we'll start from there, right? Which is working professionals. So what's the practical challenge of a working professional? Like you worked in a job. Like let's turn the table back at you.
Okay.
Like give me an example where you found yourself in a situation, but now you at least have this lens of saying no. I don't know. Like, I'm sure when you were working, were you aware of this concept that you could say no?
No, of course not. I think
Yeah.
that's a very new kind of a concept in the sense that, okay, it's always been there that you can say no, but I guess the same thing, it comes down to our cultural upbringing and stuff that, when you say no, you feel that immediate guilt and that what will our elders say and what will this one say and what will the teachers say and what will the
Yeah.
principal say and whoever. So in my job, I've touchwood not had that problem as such because I always have had that personality, if you can say that I go above and beyond for my work or for anything that I do. But when I think I need to say no, then I do say no. So I've never, touch would have had
But
that
listen,
problem.
that I think that's a persona, right? So
Yeah.
let's talk about the practical challenge of a working
So I could
professional.
change it to you. You tell me now, have you had that in your career?
I think the thing about a working professional, honestly, the concept of no just doesn't exist, right? Because the immediate repercussion of saying no is termination. Termination does not necessarily mean termination from your job,
Right.
losing the job, as in that's really worst case scenario, and that happens in some parts of the world. But I think it's like termination from a sense that, oh, you are off the promotion list. Because, if you said no and your colleague is saying yes, that like you're not the only person on the promotion list always. Like, have you realized that? Like, there's always 5 people who are on the promotion list, right? So now you're off the list.
So how do you
Because
tackle that then?
no, we'll
That's
talk about the tackling later, but let's talk about the challenges. So the first problem is this whole appearance of I'm going to lose the job. Like I'm going to get terminated from this list. I'm not going to be my boss's favorite.
my worst case scenarios in a way.
Yeah, because what happens is a lot of people, honestly, not everybody's looking for promotion.
Right.
So what's really going in their mind is I want to be on my boss's good books. So if I say no, all of a sudden I'm not in the good books.
Right.
And a lot of people don't like that idea because in my opinion, 90% plus everybody around want a very good working relationship with their bosses.
100%.
That relationship matters to them the most beyond every other relationship. So if we have bosses listening to this episode, like you really need to take this statement with a sense of responsibility that, the people who report to you really want to have a good relationship with you. It means a lot to them beyond salaries, beyond bonuses, beyond promotion.
Right.
Yeah, they just want to have a good relationship
Right.
because that good relationship has implications. It's like if I don't have a good relationship, like you're my boss, say we have a great relationship, I could like text you and say, listen, I'm going to be late to work because I have to go to my daughter's school, right? Like there's some parent teachers meeting. If I don't have a good relationship, like we have a better relationship, now I'm spending like 20 minutes thinking about how do I tell you about this.
Yeah, it's stressful.
You see
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like people don't want to have this.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm going to have a lengthier break time today. Hey, listen, you know what? I just need a break. Can I just go for a walk? You can't do all that. So people want to have a great relationship with their bosses. And I think that's the biggest problem. That's the biggest challenge. Like that fear of losing, this out. Obviously, fear of not being promoted, not having a good bonus, not have, termination, job termination. Like think about the level of anxiety today people are living with AIs coming in.
Yes, that's a big
Like
one.
how many people, like if we just start walking Shehzad Road, right? Like you and me today, and we ask 100 people, are you worried AI is going to take your job? I'll tell you, like my gut feeling says 70% of the people are going to say yes.
I agree because I know of students, I know of students who've come up and said that, I was planning to study this XYZ AI, blah, 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 advanced, blah, blah. And now in the middle of the year, because Chat GPT came in, other things have come in, I have to change my stream of studies because
Yeah.
now that is covering everything. Now
Listen,
all of a sudden,
that's another level of anxiety because the students are worried about the job they don't have being taken away.
exactly.
So forget the fact that I have a job and somebody's going to take away.
Yeah.
The students like there was this whole field of
Yes.
work I
Yeah.
could like just go pick after I
Yeah.
graduate. And
And
now it's
he
like
or she is
this doesn't
there
exist.
studying that abroad or wherever, thinking that, oh, I'm going to ace this and come back and I'm going to get a killer job. And now all of a sudden, one year,
Yeah.
one computer's only taken all your
Yeah.
stuff away. Yeah.
Let alone your boss taking your job away, right? Now there's this whole AI frenzy that's going on. So in my opinion, that's your biggest challenge, when you talk about why are people not saying no. It's not easy, by the way, right? I'm just saying, at least today, you know that you have an eyesight problem. I have difficulty seeing things which is near. There are people who don't know that they have a problem
Yeah. Oh,
with the
yeah,
eyesight,
yeah.
right?
Astigmatism also, like it's everything is distorted, but they don't realize they have astigmatism.
Yeah. So as in, I'm saying, at least in today's episode, let's just plant the topic first.
Yes.
I just feel it's not easy, Myra. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
We'll talk about tools, and I'll talk about like what's worked for me. You should talk about what worked for you.
Yes.
But in my opinion, it's not easy at all.
It's not easy at all. And we are not
Right?
reinforcing that people go around and say no to everything and
Yeah.
Again, it's just a discussion and it's just a point of view of both of
Yeah.
us and
Yeah.
what we think.
Yeah, so listen, I think that's the biggest problem. I think when you go to a homemaker, like what are the challenges of they saying no? Obviously, they're not worried about termination.
Yeah.
Like people are not like divorcing each other because
Yeah.
somebody said no to it. Like,
True.
by the way, that happens in some parts of the world.
Yeah.
So let's not discount that, by
Yes,
the way.
yes.
There is termination in a
Yes.
relationship.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, in the challenges of a homemaker is very different than the challenges of a guy who's, people who are working in a job. I think, the person, like a homemaker is their own boss.
Yes, in a way.
Yeah. So like who are you then trying to make happy? Yourself, right? Like you're really worried about, oh my God, like I think I can say no here, but I don't want to.
Yes.
Because now you're like you are like looking at yourself from both contexts.
Yes.
I want to make somebody happy, and then you're looking at
I
yourself
look
as
like
a
a bad
boss.
person when I say no.
Yeah, you're like, listen, am I like a bad
Mother
homemaker?
or
Bad
bad father or bad
Yeah,
whatever.
it's horrible.
You're judging yourself in a way.
Yeah, like, you're looking at yourself from like 8 dimensions. And honestly, like, how many dimensions do you say no to? So I'm going to say, like, I'm going to just start saying no to everything my in-laws are asking. And that creates another set of problems.
Yeah, that's
I'm
not
gonna-
what we are looking at. We are looking at, saying no to just things which are making your life very difficult. We are not saying go around and don't, say no to your in-laws for things, to your husband or.
Like, when we were discussing before we started the shoot, you said, Harish, is it about saying no to things or people?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, we
so
were discussing that.
I think that is applicable to a homemaker. Because I think it's very clear when I talk about tools, for somebody who's working, for entrepreneurs and for student, it's all about saying no to things. Even for the homemakers, by the way. But I'll tell you, for the homemakers, they look at everything in a dimension of, I'm going to say no to people. Because that just eliminates a big yes section for me. Like, I'm just going to say no to everything from my in-laws. And by the way, it creates another set of problems. All right. But I'm saying, if you like start looking at it from the lens of things, I'm going to like say no to this category of stuff.
Yes, yes.
And then I'm going to deploy these tools that Harish was talking about today
Yes.
in the discussion.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to take external help, by the way, wherever I need to take external. We'll talk about that as well. Then, in my opinion, life is better without eliminating people. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah, because like think about if the student did that. Like they just said, okay, I'm gonna keep life simple. So I'm gonna keep saying yes to everybody at school, but I'll say no to everybody at home. That binary, like, the minute you start saying no to people and you eliminate those people and saying, I'm going to say no to this people, but I'm going to keep saying yes to this, it just doesn't work. So the concept has to be saying no to things and creating a boundary. So we'll talk about creating a boundary.
Creating a fair boundary. That's what you're trying to say. Like, it's not that, oh, it's in-laws, so you ban them. Oh, it's XYZ, so you block them. It's not that. It's just that,
it's a boundary,
Yeah, it's a boundary.
So like, it's like good habits versus bad habits.
Yes.
You never say there's a good habit. A habit is good with certain people. And a habit is bad with another group of people. That's what I'm trying to say. So when you set a boundary, you're setting boundaries to things and behavior and activities as compared to people.
So now with all this stressful talk and, You know what is next.
Flash 5.
Ours is a flash five. Okay, Harish. So what's the hardest thing you had to say no to?
Work. As in, I told you, right? Like the concept of, like, this concept to me was told to be by my boss. What I was told to say no to was just stop taking more work. And it just doesn't fit in my scheme of events. It just doesn't fit even today.
Okay.
So for me, like, that's the hardest thing.
One person who sets great boundaries according to you.
If you really ask me, like, today, it's my mentor and my boss, right? Like,
Okay.
yeah, as in, he does a fabulous job of setting boundaries, like which business I don't want to get into, which business I want to get into, what kind of investments I want to make, what kind of investments I do not want to make. And I think for the CEOs, it's about just saying no and eliminating stuff rather than saying yes. It's so much about no. 80% of their job is to say no.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll discuss that.
Got it.
Yeah.
What's a sign you need to say no more often to?
Just burnout. As in, we discussed that in the last episode. Honestly, you got a heart attack, you just fell, you're sleepy. Like, yeah, you remember, like we said, there are people who like sleep 12 hours, but they get up and they're still sleepy. That's really not their sleepy, it's the burnout. It's mental burnout. They just don't, like, there's nothing to look up to anymore.
Yeah. So what's your best boundary setting hack?
My hack is putting everything in a schedule, right? Like, you know, the tools we are using. Like, we use iPads, we use certain apps like Notion between you and me, sharing ideas.
For the listeners, Harish is super organized. I might just tell you all this.
Yeah.
That
So,
super
like, for me,
organized.
that's my hack. Like, there is no hack for me. Like, my hack is doing more work. Like, I schedule, like, I know what I'm going to do this week, what I'm going to, like, my goals for the whole year is planned out. And so, like, the more I organize is my hack. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep saying yes to everything and I'm going to work like 16 hours.
Right, got it. So, one top benefit you saw in your life by saying no.
I think you get a sense of fulfillment. I thought, like, the biggest benefit I got was getting time back to do things that matter to me, right? Like, as in the conversation I recently had with my mentor and my boss was, you got to say no to stuff.
Right.
And I think you're overdoing certain areas. And for me, like, overdoing is just staying at work. Okay, like, I have this tendency just being at work for like 12 hours a day. So when I like started refining some of my schedule, delegating, trusting my team, it allows me to like do things that matter to me, which is exercising, calling my friend, doing this podcast.
Okay, that's great.
What's the hardest thing to say no to you? Like, what are you not able to say no to?
Actually, my son, he manipulates me to say yes to everything.
Yeah.
And then my husband gets very annoyed that you say no, but then you come back saying yes after 5 minutes. So my son.
Yeah. One person who sets great boundaries.
Yeah, I would say my cousin sister, Alvia. I've learned that from her, though she's quite much younger than me. I see how she is just, she puts her foot down. You know, like, no, this is how it, and nobody's saying anything wrong about her. Everyone respects the fact that she does what she does, you know, and she's her own person. I like that. Yeah, Alvia for me.
You know, as in, I keep talking about this in like different ways, but like I think I spoke about this in one of the earlier dialogues I was having with our team in India, was that I have so much of respect for the newer generation, right? But I'm telling you, like, I just look at the new generation, you know, the Gen Z, the millennials, and then now there's an alpha generation or something, remember?
Yeah.
And I think, like, I just feel there's so much to learn from them.
100%. Yeah. People think that they are very mundane and they're not reacting, but their brains are going like 50 times of our speed, I feel, you know.
What's a sign you need to say no more often beyond burnout? Because I said burnout, so you can't say that.
If somebody says that thing to me, like to be done, and I just get that stress feeling, not that, you know, like, you get what I'm saying? Like, for instance, if I might push some, okay, Harish, tomorrow we need to go here. So rather than you feel happy about it, you feel, oh shit, now that's stressful. Now I need to get up and get ready. So that feeling, this for me is something that I would say then no to, you know.
What's your best boundary setting hack?
Pleasantly saying no. Very pyar se, you know, not trying to get into a conflict. Though my husband will not agree to it. He'll say, you say no to me, fat say for the others, you know.
Listen, you know, there's some people who are gifted with, you know, being smooth in life. You know what I mean? So like, use your smoothness to your benefit. You know what I mean? All right, one top benefit you saw in life by saying no.
See, the same thing that it gives, it might just stress you out in some situations at that moment because you said no and that guilt just, sets in, and that feeling of, was I irresponsible
Yeah.
in saying no? But in a lot of, like, I would say 9 out of 10 times later on, it was a relief.
Yeah.
And the person, now that because you were not saying no, they all people have a habit of just taking you for granted also. So now once you did it once or twice, the other person also has that respect and that limitation that now if I overdo it, this person's going to say. So usse pehle only don't ask them any kind of thing,
Yeah.
just keep it there. So I think that's one thing that's worked for me.
I think there are a lot of people, Myra, who are going to feel anxious about this statement that you just made, saying, again, remember I told you like there's so much of fulfilling prophecy. So a lot of people are not going to be comfortable saying, you know what, if I keep saying no smoothly, like using all the right tools, and all of a sudden this person stops approaching me. I think this creates anxiety in a lot of people's mind.
That's true. That's true. It's to each their own. Like you asked me about me, so I can tell you about me. But the other people,
Like
they
you're
have.
okay.
I'm okay with that. But other people, they have to navigate through their emotions at what works for them. Instant no doesn't work for them. Maybe delaying, like you said, that okay, I'll get it done later, and then see whether you can get it done later, or something of that sort. You have to really work around it and see what works for you without
Yeah.
really, playing with your head. So, Harish, now that we've discussed everything, I want to know that if you say no, for example, now in all the personas, how can you help and give them tools to say no? Like, for example, help them. How will they say no to something? Can
Yeah.
we start with the students first?
Yeah, I think, we're going to spend less time today on tools because, honestly, the whole topic today was just to introduce this
And
concept
it's
of
a very
saying no.
subjective topic, so we cannot
Yeah.
exactly give everyone personal tools how to handle
Yeah.
saying no to everything and
I
everything.
think first of all, the whole idea was of this episode
Hmm.
is diagnosis.
Right.
So it's like you have vitamin D deficiency. Like, do you know that? You know what I mean?
Aware.
By the way, how many people like are aware that there's a vitamin D and what does it do? So like I think that's what we did today, saying, hey, listen, by the way, vitamin D is super important for your bones, right? And it's also important for your mental health and stuff like that. So that was the whole idea of today, saying you gotta like say no because by saying no, you're gonna add fulfillment in your life. You're gonna be more happier. You're gonna get up in the morning and you're gonna feel like doing things better. So I think that's what we did today. But yeah, listen, let's spend about some time about how do you do that. So in my opinion, students borderline, I'm gonna say like I don't want to like spend too much of time on this persona because I feel I still want the ownership of this topic to be with the teachers and with coaches and parents. I feel the most important element for both all the people involved with the student, including the student, is am I saying yes to too many things? And therefore, we need to talk about, at least have a discussion about what am I going to say no to? So, do I have to like say no to certain assignments that are not helping me? But who's going to make the decision? Especially if it came from your coaches. So, I'm saying we want to like spend less time on this. I still feel like, we discussed during the burnout session about putting schedules, saying no to bad habits. So, like a lot of kids, especially I did this when I was a student, is, hey, I'm going to just take breaks every hour. And like I would come out and play with you and like other people. And then like we played for an hour.
I hope you studied after
So,
that.
so you studied for an hour. Your break was supposed to be like 10 minutes. Our break used to be an hour.
Okay, but I'm gonna jump in the middle for one sec. This was very funny. When we were kids, I'm just putting in that episode that whenever you used to study and we were all playing outside, like me, Rizwan, Faizan, Yogesh, remember everyone, and we wanted you to come, so I would go and call out Harish, Harish. So your mom would come out. He is studying. Nobody
Yeah.
disturb him, and we used to become quiet. Like,
Yeah.
"Arey,
So
rehne do
like,
yaar, let him study."
like, my mom took the decision of saying no to you. Remember?
Yeah, see, but that was a good decision.
That's a good decision. Absolutely good decision. So, like in my opinion, I would say like I'm more comfortable talking about like working professionals and like what are the tools they need to have. So like number one rule, like I'm going to just say what my boss said long back to me, saying just say no to more work. Because I think the whole idea of work, right, today in today's schedule, like listen, when I was working 20 years back, I think the focus was on quantity of work. It's like, Harish, how many calls did you take? how many transactions did you process? Because we were required to process. But there's so much of automation that's kicked in, and now AI is going to add more to the automation. So what we are required to do as humans is quality of work. So like say no to like too much of quantity, because if it compromises quality, right? And honestly, quality of work is just not looking like taking the best 10 calls and giving that amazing client experience. Say if you're working as a call center rep and you're working in a client facing role, you're just saying you're giving quality experience to your customers. But beyond that, I think it's so much to do with I keep saying yes to all of these projects, and then I just don't do justice to all of these projects, right? Like I'm now faltering on deadlines. So even if you ended up doing the work at the top quality, but the deadline took a hit, for the firm and to your managers, that's not going to that may impact their goals. So like just say no, like understand with your bosses saying, I think I just have too many things on my plate.
Right.
And hey, by the way, I'm not saying no to this work. So like don't say no to the work. I'm gonna like say yes to this work, but I'm gonna deliver it next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Like, are you expecting me to like do this now? Like tonight? I think that's the conversation you gotta have. Because if you just keep saying yes to everything and it has to be delivered tonight, you're gonna like spend 14 hours every single night. You're gonna say no to all your social events.
Yeah, it's not practical way of living.
And you're gonna have a miserable life, and that leads to
True.
burnout.
True.
I would say like for working professionals, do that.
So, Harish, I wanted to ask you, like you said, that instead of saying no, we can negotiate it. That makes more sense because you are still doing it, but you're negotiating regarding it that it's not top priority to be done now or to exhaust yourself while doing it. So, can you elaborate, give us more examples for the same?
Yeah. So it's like, let's talk about like you're in the middle of two projects, right? Like you want to do something, or you're in the middle of a transaction and you have to finish that transaction first. So if somebody comes and says, you got to do another two transactions or you got to do another project, and, that adds to the number of hours, I feel like you really need to like tell the person, you're not going to say no. Like
Yeah.
the whole idea is not to say no.
Yeah.
Like, you really put your foot down when you got to put your foot down. But most of the time, the idea is really not to say no.
Yes.
The concept of saying no is a concept that you're aware of it. So the question now is, how do you negotiate, right? Saying, hey, listen, I'll do this project, but I'm in the middle of two projects. So if you want me to give you the right quality and in the right time, I can do the third project over and above the current two in maybe 10 days down the road, while you're expecting me to do it 5 days down the road. And most of the time, if you're really dealing with practical people, they want to listen to it. But like if you really like peel off the onion now, and other parts of the conversation, this is like for the working professional. Part of the negotiation is to say, I know someone who can do this work better than me, by the way. Like how many working professionals are just afraid? Remember I said there's a fear. You're just afraid. You're just going to keep saying yes to things, even though you're not good at it. Like, let's bring that into the conversation, right? So now you said yes to, I'm going to just keep saying yes to everything, though it leads to burnout, though it leads to me spending 14, 16 hours, though it leads to me like working over the weekend. Because you're just taking more time because you're not good at it. So it's so important for you to recognize that there's somebody better in the office. I can partner with that person, now deliver the same thing in 10 hours versus me working 20 hours.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So like when you peel the onion, when you really go deeper, and I think we'll do another episode on this topic of the tools and resources, and we go deeper in the solutioning. I think those are the kind of conversations you got to have. Is now saying, hey, by the way, I said yes to this project to my client. Because, listen, as a working professional, you may have to commit to deadlines and yes to a project because it came from your client. You can't negotiate with a client. So now you got to reach out to people within your organization to say, can I take your help and deliver it to the client and be okay with it? Because it's not about like, I'm just going to do everything because I want to do everything. You know what I mean? Like, think about a lieutenant or an army officer trying to win a battle all by himself.
That ain't happening.
Yeah.
Ronaldo winning the World Cup by himself or winning any of the matches by himself, that ain't happening.
Yeah, right. Like,
It's a team effort.
you can't, right? So sometimes just That bit is also part of the solutioning.
Okay, Harish, so can you explain this concept as far as homemakers and parents are concerned? How will they tackle this?
For the homemaker, they're saying yes to, their stakeholders are like emotionally connected to them,
Right,
right?
right.
Now, a homemaker can't say, "Hey, by the way, from today, all the dinners are going to cook by the neighbor's wife."
Yeah,
That's not
that's
going to
not.
happen, right? Like,
Yes.
come on,
Yeah.
nobody's going to take help, and nobody's giving you help.
Yeah.
So that's where organization skills come in. Saying, by the way, do I have to like cook all the meals? Do and if you have to cook all the meals, do I also have to like wash,
The dishes, so
right? And then
yeah.
like I have to also like
Clean up the
so
kitchen,
yeah, like this
etc.
is where you got to make common sense decisions, right? Like I'll tell you the best common sense decision we made was to go and buy a vacuum cleaner many years back.
Yes.
So what it does is it gets the outcome and the efficiency level is to the roof. Like, save money, buy a dishwasher. You see what I'm saying? So like if the dishwasher can do like 70% of the dishes and you can do the rest 30%, you're just more efficient and you got your time back. You see what I'm saying? So like for homemakers, it's all about like making practical choices and not like constantly being connected emotionally to everything.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So like
The guilt should be like given
just
a
make practical choices,
yeah.
right? And where you can afford, right? Like for many homemakers now, if you have access to taking house help, right? Like hiring people, it's a good thing, by the way, because you're creating a job, you're getting, somebody to earn an extra money because of you, because you let go. So like just bring in a cook in the morning who can do a couple of meals, like cook meals, and then that time you're focused towards your children who are going to school. So that whole experience, you're enhancing the experience as a parent, because now somebody's taking care of breakfast, somebody's already taking care of lunch, breakfast is already packed because the house help came at 6 a.m, made breakfast. You just have to tell what your children like, this is what they want, this is what I want, and then you're like completely committed towards giving this experience of, hey, going to school doesn't have to be stressful for your kid.
But would you say this is more for people who can afford to get the help or who can
That's
do?
why I'm saying like where you can.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just have to make practical choices,
Yes.
right?
Like you said, get the machine
Yeah,
instead
listen, the
of
practical choice, by the way, and listen, my mom would never listen to this idea. Okay?
my mom doesn't listen
No,
to
no,
the
I'm going
idea,
to
by
give
the
you
way.
no,
Yeah,
no,
same
no,
thing.
I'll give you this example, by the
Yeah.
way, right? My mom wanted to cook every meal then and there,
Yeah.
rather than saying I can cook the breakfast the night before, put it in the refrigerator, heat it up, and give it to us. She would That idea was not there in my mom's life. So my mom would get up every day at 5 a.m, cook before we got up. Then when we got up, like she would get us ready. So like it for her it was super stressful because she did not have this concept. I'm just saying, make practical decisions. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying like throw money at the problem. I'm saying where you can throw money at the problem, why not?
100%. Yeah, yeah. My mom still, by the way, doesn't believe in using dishwashers, so that's also a problem.
it?
Yeah, yeah. So convincing our mothers for these kind of things is a little. So how about the entrepreneurs and the, different kind of business leaders? How would they be tackling this saying no?
Yeah. So I think first things first, you don't have to close every deal,
True.
right? Find prospects and clients, like at least start identifying the treasure hunters, because these are customers who are not looking at your core business offering, they're treasure hunting. And you cannot make treasure hunters happy. You don't want their business all the time. All right. So you got to say no to business. And that's going to give you back so much of time to say yes to the right business and make their like really give an amazing experience to. So entrepreneurs have to do that. Second, entrepreneurs have to say no to this anxiety, say no to this, fear of failure. Because honestly, if you're not good at what you're good at, if you're not good at running a business, if you're not good at managing people, if you're not good at managing clients, you are going to fail anyway. So just saying yes to everything is not going to get you there.
That's true.
So in my opinion, like just say no to fear, like be fearless. If you're an entrepreneur, the last thing you want to be is, living a life of fear and self-doubt, right? So I would say just like, say no to that, like get into that practice. It, by the way, in the previous episode, we did discuss about burnouts. That's one of the leading indicators. It's going to be, you're not going to enjoy life.
So Harish will be taking a few of the Q&As, like people that we've been discussing with in our lives and what they have to say about this topic. So how do I say no without sounding rude or ungrateful?
One of the reason why we keep saying yes to everything is because other people kept saying yes to everything, right? It's like, how do you say no to your parents now that you're married, now that you're living in a joint family, when your parents set an example of saying yes to everything, right? Like my mom, like said yes to everything. Like she hardly said no to anything. Like she did everything for us. The practicality of you now doing it, reciprocation, is difficult because now you can't, and by the way, you can't make decisions on behalf of your partner, right? Trying to make yourself look good in front of your parent, and vice versa for the the other partner. And I think this is where a lot of couples have big problems. So I think that problem is there. That problem also, by the way, of trying to say no without sounding rude is in social events. So say you're a working professional, or you just want to chill over the weekend. Now all of a sudden you get invited for social events, saying, "Hey, come over, Myra, come over, let's sit down and chill." And you don't want to do it. But now that you can't just feel rude about saying no. You end up saying yes, and now you're more burned out because that was your me time.
Yes.
You were gonna like just sleep it out over the afternoon, watch your favorite show. You can't do that. So I would say, like, I don't know, like I think I'm really bad at this. And I just do so much of less of it. I think you do a better job. So I think this question is more for you. How do you say no to without sounding rude?
See, this now goes back to our previous episode about me saying that I am an extroverted introvert in a way. So what started happening with me was I would say yes to everything because my husband's social. I am not very social. If I'm at the social event, I'm very social. You get it? I don't want to be there, but if I'm there, I'm not going to
Yeah,
ruin it for anybody.
extrovert by choice, but you're an introvert.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So now what would happen that, if somebody is new, now you know me since childhood, you would know me. My husband knows me because he's married to me. My parents know me, my family knows me. But XYZ, now I meet somebody new in my life and now they're talking to me like the way you're talking to me and I am as social as I can be. They expect a relationship wherein every weekend I'm going to catch up for coffee or I'm going to go out with them or and that's not me at all. I'd rather be in my house. If I've socialized for one day, I need to be 5 days in my house by myself or with my family, like whatever. And now, then, that started creating a problem for me at one point initially. So, about 7, 8 years back, now that when I meet new people and I socialize with them and they see the, vibrant me, and then before they can come to any conclusion at the end of the day, very nicely I tell them, see, this is me right now, but I am not the kind who socializes every weekend. Who don't
Yeah.
feel bad that if I don't come out. It's not that I don't want to go out with you. I don't go out with my best friends or my XYZ and whatever. I might go to India for a month and just sit in the house with my family and come back, and that's me. That's very me. Okay, I'm happy doing that.
So I think, the biggest takeaway, honestly, Myra, is that, if the question, is how do I say no without sounding rude? Sometime it's actually, don't worry about that.
Don't
Like,
worry about
why are you
overthinking
worried
it.
about, yeah, exactly, right?
Maybe that person will appreciate you for that. That okay, I thought it was like this, but nahi, okay, this person is like this. I take
I
you for
also
this.
feel in some situations it's a borderline thing, but in some situation you may have to be rude.
No, not being rude. Like I'm saying, I'm not being rude to the person because I want to socialize with you, but I don't want to socialize every weekend. You get
Yeah,
it?
but you know
So,
what I mean is,
yeah.
like, who sets the definition of rude? It's like in the beginning of the episode, right? Like, what's basic for a student? So, who sets that boundary? I'm saying what's important is you saying no first, then not worrying about, like,
Yes.
don't worry about being rude
You were
and stuff like that.
respectful, you were true to yourself, and you meant well.
Yeah,
After that,
just don't
don't give
yell.
it, and don't give it an
Just don't
afterthought.
yell at somebody for
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
no. You know what I mean?
And don't give
Yeah.
it an afterthought, like so much that you're stressing yourself out of something. Maybe they didn't think about it so much after
Yeah.
that. They thought, "Haan, theek hai, yaar, it's okay if she doesn't socialize every week. I'll meet her once a month." But you're now thinking and you're killing yourself that what is that person thinking? What is that person thinking?
I can relate to this point. I rather not have a friend in a social event who was forced into coming, right? I rather have like just 3 people who really wanted to come rather than 10 people of which 50% did not want to come. But they ended up coming because of the social pressure.
Yes.
That's not a fun party at all.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with it. So, another question that we can take is
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur, how do I say no to clients without losing business?
That is really where you don't have to like say no. You have to negotiate with your customers saying, listen, you know what? Hey, we have certain orders that we ended up committing to. And as you're aware, we stand by quality, we stand by commitments we make to our customers. So the same experience I'm giving to my current orders, I'm guaranteeing you I'm going to give you the same level of satisfaction, quality, fulfillment. So like, can I deliver this to you in like 15 days down the road? Rather than I'm going to deliver it to you today, because if I say yes to you, I'm like lying to you and I'm not going to give the quality. Now there could be situations where the client cannot wait, that order has to go. That's really where you like phone one of your other clients and say, hey, listen, you know what, I'm so sorry, I told you that I'm going to fulfill this order by the end of this weekend. Hey, by the way, I'm going to be super honest with you, there's an urgent delivery from another customer. And I look at all my customers as a community, like you guys all mean so much to me. If your order can wait like for the next weekend, can I like just push it to the next weekend? Now there's a situation, this client says, no, I'm so sorry. Then you know what, let's be honest, just say no to that business. Because if you are worried about losing business, but if your client saw this effort saying, I'm going to call this client, and if he defers the client, this order to the next weekend, then I'm going to fit you in this weekend, and the whole piece work together, you go back to the customer and say, hey, listen, I'm so sorry. I made those 2 phone calls. Unfortunately, all my clients want the delivery this weekend. I'm so sorry I can't do this. By the way, I know someone who I trust can do this work for you. So if you don't mind, I'm going to give you this number. I'm guaranteeing you would have anyway lost the business to someone else. The fact that you made the introduction, there's a high possibility the client's going to come back to you for the next order. The fact that the customer saw you make an effort, the fact that you told the customer you look at all your customers as an ecosystem, as a community. So I try to work within the community. Hey, listen, I'm so sorry I can't fulfill the order this time around. Remember me, come back. If you're going to keep saying yes to every order, and remember the conversation I just said, like just now, I had that conversation with my mentor, my boss, and he said, Harish, you can't win every deal. You're going to have burnout. If you're not going to burn out, you're going to burn out the company's resources. You start burning company resources, the company is not going to be profitable. And the company is not going to be profitable, you're not going to exist.
It's a chain reaction, yeah.
It's a crazy chain reaction. It's not going to happen like tomorrow. You're going you're going to burn the company down in 6 months with your fear of saying no. So please understand, it's not about saying no. It's the process of realizing you can't keep saying yes to everything. It's not binary, right? So I just gave this example, like just try to internalize it in your workflow.
Got it.
Yeah.
How do I teach my kids the importance of saying no and setting boundaries?
I think my worry about the kids and even me as a kid was peer pressure. You know what I mean? Like, you said, right? Like you would call me for playing while I'm studying. It's a peer pressure. And nothing has changed, right? So back in the day, you like literally had to knock at my door, yell, and play in front of my house to realize we're playing. Remember, we did all that tactics?
Yeah.
But in today's world, everything is on social media.
Right.
And unfortunately, the peer pressure is not to those 10 people who live in your community
Yeah,
anymore.
it's
Like the
online.
yeah, it's
Roblox,
online.
they all are
Like
there.
somebody's
Yeah.
messaging you from the US saying, hey,
Yeah.
are you playing?
Yes.
So in my opinion, like the peer pressure is what bothers, students the most. They really want to keep like saying yes to their peers. I would say like parents and the students who are listening to this podcast really need to have this dialogue saying, how do we say no to the peers in a more productive manner? Saying, hey, I'm going to set a boundary. No gaming, no online gaming during exams. Or like 10 days before exams. I'm not going to like do online gaming, like no social events.
Yeah, on the
And-
weekends you're allowed to do it, or
or if you're doing social events, it's for group study.
Right.
I'll tell you, like at least for me and for my son now, group studies have been super productive. Yeah. So like there's no, you don't have to like say no to friends. For us, my mom, like, she said no to friends. It doesn't have to be that way. It's like, hey, Myra, Harish is studying. Do you want to help him out? Like, then you're allowed in the home. But like, back in the day, things were different, right? Like the environment we were born and brought up in has led us to be here.
Yes.
So listen, I'm not complaining about my environment I'm bringing at all, like zero. I'm just saying there is a dialogue to be had about certain yeses and certain nos.
Yes.
I would say if they could do that, things are going to
excellent.
be much more better.
So this episode has been an eye-opener. I think people, if they have any comments, reviews, or anything they need to ask us, or they want to comment, or even if share their own experiences, please do comment below. And thank you, Harish, for your insights.
Yeah, I
And
think the biggest takeaway, Myra, for today's episode was not the tools. Like, we
Yes.
focus so much on tools on all the
it's about
episodes.
recognizing.
Yeah, so like, for everyone, it's the diagnosis which is super important before the solutioning, right? So if you're worried about vitamin D levels, if you're looking at osteoporosis, like one of the measures today, your take home is going to be saying, are you saying yes to everything? And is that creating problems in your life?
Yes, that's the question, actually. Yeah. So thank you. And thank you for listening and tuning in. Thank you, Harish, for a lovely episode. And see you all next time. Bye.
Take care.